Welcome to a special mini-series of Diary of a Dreamer called Be the Change, where resilience, critical thinking, and everyday courage come together. I'm Tasha Eizinger, and in this series, we're exploring how ordinary people can create meaningful change. We'll talk about how to think clearly, engage responsibly, and take action in ways that truly make a difference. If you've ever wondered how to stay level-headed, raise resilient kids, participate in your community, and be a force for positive change, this series is for you. You can learn more about my work at tashaeizinger.com. Let's dive into today's conversation and explore how we can be the change. Today's guest is Sue Kesim. She is a longtime community advocate and civic leader in South Bend, Indiana. She has spent years showing up in many ways for our community, from attending city council meetings and budget hearings to volunteering and with hospice care, senior programs, Unity Gardens, and junior achievement. I could honestly keep going on and on about all the things she's done for our community, which I greatly appreciate. Professionally, though, she brings experience as a corporate trainer, an analyst, an IT professional, and personally, she's known for her grassroots efforts to empower everyday citizens to understand local government, engage in advocacy, and have their voices heard. So it's no wonder why I asked you, Sue, to be a part of this mini series on Diary of a Dreamer, especially when you told me about your 333 advocacy plan, which is a framework designed to help passionate people. We will always need more passionate people, but help those passionate people channel their civic energy into actionable impact. So thank you for being here today, Sue. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we had, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say on the 333, I came up with this when I was running for city council.
Oh, wonderful. How long ago was that?
That was in 2019.
Okay.
And I lost in the primaries, but I've been attending government meetings probably for 20 years now. And I would write about them so people would say, "Oh, I didn't know that was going on at the meeting." I would publish my my notes basically before blogging was really popular. People say, "Oh, send me your notes. I want to know what happened," And then people would say, "Well, if you've got all these ideas, why don't you run?" And so I did. And so the 333 was part of a panel where it was like, get to know the person. And because I had worked on a lot of things, I thought, well, 333, that makes sense. So basically, you have three key issues you want to give. You don't want to make it too long. You want it memorable. So three key things that you want changed. And then you want to take three actions. You want to call a write. You want to share your facts. And unfortunately, you have to invest your time and your dollars, too, if you want to see something change.
Yes.
And it's really important to follow up because it seems like in today's world, everybody has a short memory. And yes. You have to bug those people that are voting on it and to try and say, hey, there's other people, I've got public support, and you've got to stay persistent. It's really a marathon. For example, I wanted to get some sidewalks changed around. They were crumbling around a park and a school area. I've been working on that for 5 years. 5 years.
So 5 years for sidewalks.
Yes, 5 years for sidewalks.
I think this is entering into ultra marathon status. It's no longer a marathon.
Yeah, so I had 2 years with one District 5 person that refused to do anything, another 2 years with the District 5 person that wouldn't do anything. And finally, I said, no, I had pictures of these crumbling sidewalks with grass growing through them. And I took it up a notch. And so I went before the school board and I went before the redevelopment commission with pictures and explanations and what needed to be done. And they realized that I do have a blog and I do get thousands of people looking at the blog. And it would make them look bad not to do anything, particularly since these sidewalks are around schools and a park with young children. So yeah.
So, okay, I
Sometimes
want
it's
to
a long
backtrack.
time.
Yeah, I
Huh?
want to backtrack for people because I think so many people are overwhelmed by the great need for change, whatever that looks like for each individual person. So I'm hearing, first of all, you had a singular focus, the sidewalks, right?
Right.
Right. You weren't like trying to change everything at the same time. And I'm sure over the 5 years, you've had other things as well, but you had a plan specifically for that one thing. Okay. So how do we know who to go to, where to go when we're wanting to do something? So obviously, if it's for a school, there's school board meetings, right? But how do people find the information of even where to go, when meetings are, all of that?
So oftentimes, like for the city council, the county council, they actually have what's called a clerk's office. And the clerk puts together all the meeting agendas and puts out all the notices and things like that. So a good place to start is often a clerk's office, the clerk that goes with that particular body, whether it's a county or a city or state or whatever. Of course, it's a lot easier now online to do research, but that's a good place to start. For example, there was a county law I wanted to change with animal ordinance. So I went into the county clerk's office and I said, "Hey, how do I get a law changed?" And then present it to the council. And I'm like, "Yeah, that's not happening. I don't have all that money, and I'm not going to hire a lawyer." So in response to that, I created a website called writemylaw.com. And it
Right?
actually
WRITE.
WRITE and then writemylaw.com to help people walk through the process, how to research it, and some of the processes. It's a more expanded version of the 333 advocacy. So yeah, that animal thing was decades ago. I learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
I also learned that they often, the people that are in office, particularly at a local level, are not full time, they're part time.
Okay, that's very interesting to know. I don't know. I did not know that, and I'm guessing a lot of people didn't know that.
Right. Even Indiana state legislature, they're only a few months a year. So they don't have a lot of time to do the research, write in the wording of it and things like that. But if you make it easy enough for them, so like with Write My Law, I actually rewrote the part of the ordinance I wanted put in.
Okay.
Well, now will they do it exactly that way? Probably not.
No.
But it's a starting point. And they can say to the attorney that's attached to the council, how should we modify this? But if they have to come up with the wording on their own, a lot of times they won't bother.
That's a great tip. And for anybody who has kids, you might know what I'm talking about here because my older one brought me a paper that needed to be signed and filled out and all of that stuff, which happens regularly, right, during the school year. And right as I was getting ready to say, "Do you have a pen?" She handed me a pen because her teacher said, "Make it easy on your parents. Take the paper and the pen." And guess what? I got it done right away. So it's the same thing. Make it as easy for them as possible so that they can just maybe edit a couple words here and there or whatever they want to change, but it gives them a starting point. So that's a great tip.
Yeah, and Write My Law walks through some of those and where to find research, because I really believe that in the saying "we the people,"
Yeah.
and we should be figuring out the laws that govern us on a regular basis. And with local laws, we live by those laws all the time. You know, and
Mm.
like the animal law that I wanted done, or the sidewalks, or
Right.
sometimes it's not some big federal issue
Yeah.
It's a way of making your personal community better. I know you told me something about changing an intersection.
Yes. Yeah. My mom was in an accident and it was a dangerous intersection. And when the people on the street heard the accident, they knew immediately because they had heard so many car accidents there. And I thought, this is unacceptable. It was close to a school here again. And I thought, is it going to take a teenager getting killed in a car accident to finally fix this intersection? Like, we don't need to wait that long. And so fortunately, they were already doing construction, but I showed up at a meeting. I had the statistics, information, all of that. And I made a recommendation that was very doable, but put flashing lights on what is already existing. I mean, it was as simple, kind of like what you're saying. I made it as simple for them as possible. And when I got done talking, they said, so what do you want to have, happen from here? And I said, well, I want it to be changed and I want you to tell me when you change it. I'm not here just to complain. We don't need to wait for somebody to die to fix this. And then sure enough, they changed it. It felt so empowering to think, okay, so did I change the world? No. Did I change federal policy? No. But it was something that could have really severely impacted somebody's life. So I think what you're teaching makes a lot of sense. And I hope more people do that, because if everybody does something, that's how we create change in our community.
And you can start with potholes.
Yeah, there's plenty.
People on social media are complaining about potholes, and I'll put in the comments, call 311 or call whatever number, depending on whether it's a state road or a county road or a city road. Because if they don't know, they can't fill the pothole. And so really sometimes it's just as simple as calling in. And my husband would say, oh, somebody will call. I said, yeah, the somebody has to be me, because otherwise it doesn't.
And you're absolutely right, Sue, because they have even seen that in maybe like an emergency situation where everybody's expecting somebody else to call 911 and nobody calls 911 while somebody's in an emergency situation. So you're absolutely right. Do not wait for somebody else. And if you have enough time to complain about it on social media, you have enough time to pick up the phone and make a call.
Right. And you can just Google it. I mean, there's no excuse anymore to not Google it. And another really not such a small change in a way, there was a really rough railroad track. And I mean, it was rough, like you could take out the bottom of your car going up and down it. And on a busy, it's on Ironwood, like thousands of cars a day. It's the main north-south route. And of course, nobody called. So I pulled over, and there's actually a 1-800 phone number on the railroad track thing. And then it tells what crossing, the actual identifying ID for that crossing.
Interesting.
So I called the toll-free number and I said, hey, we got thousands of cars. It's taking up, it's really rough. And this is the crossing number. And within 2 weeks, they had someone out there fixing that crossing so that it was smooth for thousands of cars every single day going over that crossing.
Sue, okay, just a
But
second.
I was like the only person out of thousands of cars every day that called about that really unsafe railroad crossing.
And I wonder how many people grumbled under their breath.
Oh, yeah.
Told their family and friends, nobody's coming to fix it. And all it took was just a little bit of time to make a call, do a little research, and it was fixed.
Right.
I hope people are hearing what you're saying and light bulbs are turning on. Now, another thing that I wanted to ask you, because I think you're very clear on issues that actually really matter to you, where you can make move the needle, right?
Right.
One of the things that concerns me about people is I think sometimes people just get so impassioned and enraged about everything. And they're really worked up about everything. So how did you narrow down, like, these are some areas where if I see a need, I'm going to speak up, or I can be passionate about it? How did you narrow it? Because you aren't going running at the mouth about everything. Like, you are really focused on what you're doing, right?
Right, because why waste my time? Like they used to say, if somebody didn't like a meal at a restaurant, let's say, they would tell 9 people. That was the average of like their family, friends, their close circle, don't eat there. I had a bad meal, whatever it was. And but now on social media, you can complain about something and thousands of people see it.
Yeah.
I don't really like to do that because I don't, I mean, we know each other. I don't spend my time complaining to you about the sidewalks or the railroad tracks or the animal laws or whatever, because I'd rather refocus my energy on how do I change it.
Okay, I hope everybody heard that. I refocus my energy on how to change it. Yes. That right there should be everybody's slogan. That should be a bumper sticker.
So people say to me, well, Sue, we didn't see you at the rally holding a sign. And that's I fine for people that want to do that. That is not my personality. I'm an introverted IT person, and I deal with facts. I'm just not into stand in. At the end of it, did it accomplish anything?
Right.
So I had a friend, very articulate. He was getting a group to stand and about something in front of, like, it wasn't City Hall, but it was downtown. And I said, yeah, you've got all these people. They've taken all their time to come down there, park, make signs, yell. And I said, and then what?
Right.
So I said to him, I said, what are your 3 calls to action for when they leave? Because then they're going to go home and go, wow, it felt good to scream and yell and do a sign.
And to be part of community. I do think there is something to be said for people to keep hope. Like, I'm not the only one that feels this way. I'm also completely in agreement with you, Sue, that what comes next, because yes, we've got to maintain hope. We have to have community. We have to know that we're not alone. Like, all of that's really important. But you're right. In order to create true change, what comes next? So go ahead and finish your story.
So I said, what are your 3 things? Tell them who to call. Tell them the next meeting to show up where it's a county or city or whatever council meeting. And tell them where to write or website to go to for further information, because you don't want it to just happen and then poof, nothing.
Right.
And so he really thought about that. Fortunately, I got to talk to him before the event.
Yeah.
And he came up with 3 things. He says, oh, we need to, make sure you call, make sure you show up at this meeting, make sure, whatever. So yeah, if you give a call to action, in business, we have the call to action as part of the sale, right? But
Right.
you have to have a call to action in other ways. For example, one of the issues that we have in Indiana is that there are a lot of rape kits that are not processed,
Ugh.
thousands of them. So the DNA never gets entered into the system. The women never get justice. There's no way of prosecuting. And so what I've done is I contacted my state representative. She introduced 2 bills. No, they did not get voted through, unfortunately, but it's a start. It's the start of a conversation. This summer, I'm going to get together with the local prosecutor and her and a couple other people and do a panel, probably at IUSB or somewhere.
Okay.
Get the conversation going, get some legislation written. For example, in Connecticut, they have to process a rape kit within 30 days. And it's really important to do it right away.
Absolutely. It makes sense for so many reasons.
Right. So what I'm saying is I'm in process on this particular issue. And I'm telling you, my thought process was you have to get people who can make the change at the table.
So how did you get those people? Okay, so you're planning this panel, which is brilliant to create the, keep the conversation going. I also love that you didn't give up. You weren't like, well, I tried, it just didn't go through. You're like, nope, I tried. That was attempt number one. I'm not giving up because it's important. It's very important. So thank you for not giving up. Thank you. So how do you get these people to agree to meet with you and do this panel?
So some of it is getting in the same room with them. Now I don't run in very elite circles. let's be clear. I'm at street level and I have a blog, but so what I do is I go to where they're speaking, and then afterwards I say, can I walk with you to your car?
And as a woman, you can ask that, and it's a safe question.
And I said, there's something I'd like to talk to you about. And so I have my elevator speech, as you will, whatever, on the issue. I'm interested in this. I think that you can help me with this, whatever. Can I get back to you? Can I talk to your assistant, whatever? So both of these ladies, I talked to it at a meeting that was out in public, talked to them afterwards, called, and I said to the assistant, oh yeah, I met with them at this particular meeting. So there's a reference point that, oh, she already talked to my boss about it.
Right. Better not drop the ball.
So then I'm waiting for a call back. And so then I know someone at IOSB, I'm going to see if we can't get a venue. If not, there's somewhere else. So yes, it does take time, or I could just complain about it on social media for the next 4 years. I don't know.
And feel crippling fear and anxiety, or do something about it. So another thing, as you're talking, so you've already shared some ideas of things that are quicker, actionable steps to take, right? Like picking up the phone and making a call. This takes more time and dedication. So I feel like somebody who's listening, who's like, oh, I'm really impassioned about something and I really want to see change, but I don't have the time. One of the thoughts that popped into my head, Sue, is for some of those people, maybe get like your own little committee, right? Find a few friends who are all very passionate about the same issue and divide and conquer, right? Do you think that sounds like, like everybody's doing some research, everybody's figuring out what to say and how to say and who to call, and then you're working together?
Yeah, and I think sometimes people need that mutual support. And I have some friends that are great at research. I have other friends that are great at organizing and get people round up to come to a meeting. So yeah, a small group. You get too big of a group, sometimes it gets bogged down and nothing happens. I hate to say that, but sometimes
no, you're right.
You need like maybe 3 to 5 people.
And okay, so let's think about those 3 to 5 people. I know we could use AI, or an AI expert as well, but we could use the AI to create a template for us. But from your experience, it sounds like have one person maybe who's really great at researching, one person who's really great at organizing, and maybe one person who's really great at bringing people into, like you're saying, the panel or the meeting, something like that.
Or speaking, because a lot of people are very afraid of speaking. They're passionate about it, but they don't want to walk up to the podium. Okay. And I got to tell you, at first I was one of those people. Now it's like, oh, this is my podium. I'm so used to speaking at the podium in the council room that it's like, okay, here's where I put my notes or whatever, the school podium. And people are like, how do you do that? It's like, I go up and it really helps to be prepared. I will say that. Normally these meetings have what's called privilege of the floor, where anybody can come up and say what issues on their mind, as long as it wasn't discussed in that particular meeting.
Okay.
So I have taken advantage of a lot of privilege of the floor. I can tell you that, but and you get 3 minutes, at least the cases here locally, we get 3 minutes. So I very carefully write out my points. rehearse it down to the 3 minutes. It's often good to start with why it's important to you. Like you were saying, your mother had been in a car accident,
Right.
or I'm talking about the kids on the sidewalk or what. So it's good to start with a personal reason and a story, if you will. They say always start with a story, and then give the 3 points of what you're interested in changing or affecting or whatever. And then have a good closing line, like a punchline, if you will, like
Okay.
something that's memorable, like a sound bite, because sometimes people forget what's in the middle, but they
Mhm.
remember the beginning and the end. The other thing is I have handouts for them, or I have emailed it and I say, oh, and I emailed it to you, because I want them to have actually something to review over. And then I often say, and I attach some research,
Nice.
because
So
I
you're
know
doing
they're
all of
gonna,
their homework for them.
yeah,
I mean, you're
yeah,
doing no, but
basically.
yeah, it's funny. Grown-ups are just big kids. So I do think that's important too. So you're taking the time to do your research. You are practicing and preparing. You're doing everything possible to make it as easy for them to say a yes as possible. So anybody who's a business-minded person is probably like, yeah, that makes sense in sales, right? You gotta, because that's kind of what you're doing is you're giving a pitch, right? Like this is the pitch. This is what I'm selling. Are you gonna buy?
Correct. And what I was surprised at is these privilege of the floors. Now, because of COVID, all these meetings are online.
Oh.
And so they may, they get so used to seeing me. It's like, oh, it's Sue again. What does Sue want now? But that's okay, because I'm amazed when I'm out and about. People say, oh, I saw you on at the for the televised, the YouTube part of it. I say televised, but sometimes it's on TV. Um, and that's great. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that so many people are watching. And I go back to the YouTube, and sometimes there's like 300 people that watched it. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh. and then
Maybe
I'll,
it's better not to know.
but then I also post it on my blog, and I go and look at the numbers. So I, every month I go to the crime meeting and I scan and publish all the crime statistics on my blog. People say, how do you know so much about the crime? I'm like, well, I go to the monthly meeting. Well, I don't have time to go to the monthly meeting.
Yeah.
But they go to my blog and they can go see the crime for their exact neighborhood.
Wonderful. What's your blog so everybody can find it?
It's Michiana Observer.
Yeah.
Michiana Observer on Facebook. So then I thought about it. I thought, I tell people, come to the meeting. We need more people, because I walk in and there's only 2 other people. And the council gets kind of brazen about, well, just do what we want because nobody's here.
Yeah, nobody's monitoring for accountability.
Right, right. Actually, the South Bend Council just changed the ordinance to get rid of their rules committee thing for accountability. They actually voted to get rid of their accountability. Yeah, it was.
It's problematic.
Yeah, it's problematic. But so what I realized was people don't know when the meetings are. So what
Right.
I did was every week now on my blog, I list all the government meetings I could find for that week.
That's amazing.
And
That's
so if
amazing.
they're having an issue with code enforcement or roads or whatever, they can look
Yeah.
and see city, county, whatever. Um, so I thought, well, they're not going to get to the meeting if they don't know when it is,
Yeah.
or that there's a parks department meeting, and like transportation meetings and all sorts of stuff. So as part of helping my community, there's a weekly post of all the meetings. There's a monthly post of all the crime stats, and they can see the actual crime in their particular neighborhood or where they're interested in. And then I also do budget hearings. They don't like me doing that, but we should know what our money's being spent on,
That
and
is such a great point. Like, I know where my money's spent in my house. I would like to know where it's being spent in my community.
Right. And you would not probably be happy if you actually looked at some of those numbers.
I'm sure.
For example, I went to one meeting. They're giving, and this is a true thing, unfortunately, they're giving $9 million to a developer to build luxury condos on the river. That's $214,000 of our tax dollars per condo.
Eesh.
At the same meeting, they only would allot $4 million for the homeless center to help out the homeless in our community. 9 million for luxury condos, 4 million for the homeless.
And what was
We
the
have,
rationale behind that? I'm assuming they're looking at it as a business and it's an investment. So how long will it take them to recoup that money?
well, here's the problem. South Bend gives tax abatements. So they give them the money and then they don't have to pay the taxes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not such a great deal.
No. And I do.
And the homeless thing, the reason it's so important is South Bend has 44% Alice poverty rate.
Tell
Alice is
everybody what Alice poverty rate means.
so Alice is a rating that's done by the United Way. And it's by how many people in the household and things like that. But Alice is people that can't often pay their rent or their food or their medication or whatever. We have 44%, almost half the people in South Bend are living at poverty.
Yeah.
And then we're giving 9 millions for a luxury condo. Now,
Yeah.
if you're the developer, you're thrilled because out of $1 million for each condo, 214,000 got paid for by the taxpayer.
Yeah.
And I said that's not my values.
Yeah.
And for some people that is their value.
Right.
And so
But here's the thing, Sue, about that. So I always find that I start asking more questions, and you've probably noticed that when we're together. Like, so why is this or what's that? And get very curious about the causes or the things that you're hearing that I just wish everybody'd get more curious, asking those questions, diving a little deeper instead of just hearing numbers or just hearing a thing, a one-liner, a headline, and making an assumption or having a strong opinion, right? And that is something that I appreciate about you, Sue, is you do take the time to look into those numbers and to look into and dive deeper about things that you do feel concerned about. And regardless of how people perceive that, the homeless or the luxury condos, whatever your perspective is, you need to do your research.
right.
You're going to have a strong opinion about it. Take the time. And that's why whenever you have a strong opinion, Sue, I respect you because I know you've taken your time to research, ask questions, use critical thinking skills, if you will. Right?
Yeah, it's follow the money.
Yeah.
And seriously, if you follow the money, which is why I do the budget things, and people say, I remember one budget a few years ago, I said, and I don't really agree that we pay the parks director so many thousand more than we pay the police chief.
Oh,
Because the police chief, the police are out there basically putting their lives on the line, in my opinion. The parks, they're out having fun. And so I said, again, that's not my values. And so when you get up, you can say that's not your values, that you prefer one thing over another. But yeah, it's important to know that, how much did they spend on the schools versus how much did they spend on these developers, or whatever.
I know a while back they were going to cut funding from the public library, which I am at right now. I use our public library all the time for my business. It's a tremendous asset in our community. And we have beautiful libraries in our county. We're really fortunate. And somebody had posted on Facebook. So this is your call to action, totally part of your 333 advocacy plan. So they posted on social media, hey, there's a meeting at this time. They're wanting to cut funding from our libraries. All of us need to come together for our children, for our community. And sure enough, I think they had a packed house. People showed up. They're like, do not mess with our libraries, right? So if you are going to post on social media or you are wanting to create change in some way, that is a great way to rally people together, because like you said, there can be hundreds or maybe even thousands of people that see a post, right? Somebody's bound to be able to show up if it's really that important. So I'm curious though, Sue, what are some things that you see people do wrong when it comes to advocacy and creating change?
So before I answer that, I want to go back a little bit
Yeah.
to get all those people at the meeting. One thing I do is I send the notice of what's happening in advance to all 3 TV stations.
Okay, that's a good
The
idea.
news director, because if it's a slow news day, they can send someone to cover that meeting.
So to the
And
news
director, I tell them what the issue is, where it is on the agenda, what's happening, how many dollars. Again, I'm doing their homework as the reporter.
Yeah.
That they just show up, they do a clip. My problem is now the news clips have gotten to be tweets, basically. Whenever I was writing for the newspapers, we had a thing that we had to say where it was, who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Yeah.
You had to answer all the questions. And so in my blog posts, I try and do that. So I tell them, here's a link. So, like, how do we know what you're saying is true? And so I always link back to the government website and say, here, go look for yourself. Here's
Right.
where I got the numbers. Because they should hold me accountable, but they should also hold the people voting your dollars accountable too. So one of the things I see as an error, there is someone who shows up at every single meeting and screams at the board.
Oh, no. That's not good.
Oh,
I don't
yes.
even know who you're talking about, but that's not good.
And there's no like definitive, here are 3 steps we could take to make a difference. It's and like everybody just tunes around. And it's, when she gets up, she's going to just say the same thing at a very loud voice. And it's
Just
like,
because you say it louder does not mean they will hear you more.
correct. Correct. So really, it's do your homework, have your facts, and then basically, yes, do the homework for them. I will cite the ordinance. I will give the links of where the information is. What could happen? What's happening in another community? For example, Connecticut, making sure that the packets, the evidence is done within 30 days.
Right.
Okay, here's another example of another community, and I think we need to do it here too.
Right.
So the biggest mistake is just to be really emotional, rant, not giving me solutions. So,
Right. And it can be an emotional topic, right? Like I felt very worked up about talking about my mom because I did lose my dad from a car accident. So it was I felt very emotional about it. But you go into the meeting, take your deep breaths, calm your nerves as much as you can, and have like your research and facts and information. So even if they do hear a little crack in your voice or hear a little emotion, that isn't necessarily bad, or hear that even you're like upset. If you have all of the information to support what you're claiming, they will at least take you more seriously than somebody going in and just screaming at them.
right. And yeah, the emotional stuff, people are like, okay, it's not going to work. And in some ways, I feel the same way about standing on a street corner with a sign yelling.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that you're upset about this. What are 3 things that we can do to make it better?
Right.
I mean, let's actually have some positive motion and some positive, constructive conversation. For example, right now, a lot of the discussion is on data centers.
Right.
And I think you were the one that kind of said, hey, Sue,
I did, because can I share this? That
you're a
you,
big
first of
eco
all,
person, and I'm also
you're
an
very,
IT person.
I know that you love our planet and you love IT and AI. So I was like, is she just walking around like a conflicted human being right now? But you gave me a good answer.
So, to give you the answer, I am part of the local groups. There's a climate change group that's opposing the data centers. And obviously, I use AI and I'm an IT person. And I said to the group, and they know that I've been an advocate for a lot of clean things, invasive plants and all sorts of. And I have 10,000 people in my gardening group called Michiana Yardners. So yes, there is the green side to me. But what I said is, it's not going to work to just say no data centers. I said that just isn't going to work. I said what I really want us to do is do eco-friendly data centers. There is a way to reduce the impact, and we need to require them to do those things. And so I came up with a whole list of collecting the rainwater off those big roofs, putting solar panels on them, reusing the heat from it. For example, Notre Dame routed their server heat to the greenhouse on Mishawaka Avenue. They put their servers there and yeah. So there are ways of making it better.
Mm-hmm.
And so I also created a whole thing on an ordinance they could pass requiring that they collect the rainwater. That's something that Notre Dame does. They could put in different things underground for the cooling. That's what Notre Dame does. And Notre Dame does an incredible job on sustainability. So I looked at a lot of the stuff Notre Dame was doing and said, hey, we could have the data centers do this and not have as bad of an impact. And
so I love that you're not.
It's a compromise because data centers aren't going away.
Well, and I think you're hitting on like a really important piece of information that I hope everybody picked up on, is that we can't always have it exactly the way we want it. And it requires negotiation and compromise and knowing where you'll give a little, where you won't give, where you won't budge. And I think a lot of times I'm seeing adults who are just like, I just want it this way and it has to be exactly this way. And it's like, well, then you're never going to get your way. And you sound like a toddler, right? Because you're going to throw a fit because you're not getting your way. And so what you have said a couple of times here is, well, maybe it didn't go exactly the way you wanted it. And you're, figuring out a way to be adaptable, or, well, we can give a little here and take a little there and negotiate. Like, you're very good at that, Sue. And I think that that's probably part of the reason why you have created some change.
And there's something I learned very important. I was allowed to be in part of a Cherokee circle of women. And for about 7 years, it was a teaching circle. So it wasn't exclusive just to people who are Cherokee. But one of the things that really hit home about that is making seventh generation decisions. So when you're deciding to build a data center or pollute a river or whatever, how is that going to affect 7 generations from now?
Mm.
Because we borrow the environment from future ancestors. Do we want grandkids and great grandkids saying, what the heck were you thinking to do this and put all these PFAS chemicals in our water and pollute our air with mercury and whatever it is? So one of the things I really feel is a great thing to think about when you're making a decision 7 generations from now, when they're looking at your name going, oh, I'm so glad she did that, or what?
Right.
I'm always hoping that, my name will come up and say, oh, she was great at getting this changed or whatever. And,
Right.
like the railroad tracks. My husband and I drive over the railroad tracks and I say, I did that.
And that's very empowering.
It's a small victory to drive over. And it'll be a great victory to walk on the sidewalks by the school and the park and say, yes, they're no longer cracked and awful, and sometimes
Right.
I just, and I help save the conservatory, the plant conservatory on Mishawaka Avenue. I was part of the team that
Wonderful.
saved that. So now I walk in or go past it and I'm like, yeah, it's still here because of me. They didn't tear it down,
And we can all do that, Sue. Like you're giving us things that we can all do. Like pick something that you want to change, do some research, use your voice for good, or find somebody who's going to use their voice with your research. It doesn't matter, right? So, you've obviously had some wins. I know you've probably had some things where you're still working on creating change many years later, as you have said, and some things it's just may not happen for a very long time, if at all, right?
right?
It takes a lot of fortitude and resilience to do what you're doing. So how do you keep hope and stay strong and resilient to keep going? Because I think one of my concerns is I see people are so worked up. That's not sustainable. They're going to crash and burn, right? We've got to stay level headed to keep creating change and making our communities better. So, what do you specifically do to help you?
I think you have to have a personal mission statement.
Oh, I like that.
um, my hashtags are tech for good and follow the money. Also, my grandparents instilled in me, leave it better than you found it. And my grandparents started Habitat for Humanity.
What?
Yes,
I didn't
I
know
worked on
that.
the first Habitat houses, and they stuck with it. And look where it is now. It's international.
That's amazing.
But the trait in our family, and you asked about sticking with it, stubbornness, just stubbornness. A lot of it is stubbornness. No, no, no. I'm gonna change this. Somehow I'm gonna change this. But I've worked on so many different things. I've had like you said, victories in some things, not in others. Um, yeah, and I think too, if you do it with other people, maybe um, I'm not always, I've done so much stuff on my own that because people like would bail on me.
Yeah.
And so I ended up having to do all the research and all the other stuff and the presenting and the following up. Still, I go over the railroad track and I say, yep, did that. Go past the conservatories that are still there, did that. So I have a small satisfaction when I go past something, knowing that I made my community better in some way.
Mhm.
Even like when I was we were going down a road and my husband said, that pothole's still there. And I said, and did you call it in? No. I said, well, and then that pothole's still going to be there. So I go and I called in that pothole. It was a really bad pothole. And someone could have an accident or damage their
Right.
tire or whatever. Um, I could have gotten on and just ranted about potholes. Yeah, it's, winter, spring, we have a lot of potholes.
We do.
Um, I also looked at some of the new technology and that actually like expands and contracts so you don't get those potholes.
I was wondering about that because I'm like, there has to be a better way than what we're doing.
There is. So I sent that to MACOG, which is Michiana Council of Governments, MACOG, Michiana Council of Governments, and they combine the transportation needs for our 4 counties.
So how did you know to contact that specific organization? Just went on Google?
Oh, because I've been to some of their meetings.
Okay.
I'm like a government meeting groupie. So if you want to get started being, I say just pick a meeting and go to it 5 times in a row or something. I mean, just or And you don't even have to go to it. Now you can just watch it online. You don't
I
even have
really
to,
like knowing
you
that.
don't even have to like get out of your PJs. You can watch it happening. And school board, a lot of people care about the school board. I mean, thousands of kids in the school system. I was amazed how many people have seen me. They even do it on the radio. And I'm like, what? Because a friend said, oh, yeah, I heard you on the radio about blah. I'm like, wait, what? It's also on the radio? I didn't know that. But so you never know what ripple you're going to make. Think about throwing a pebble into the pond and seeing the ripples,
Yeah.
because I taught someone else how to do the railroad thing, which I put it online. I said, look, here's a picture of the sign, and here's the number you call, and here's the crossing ID. So if there's a bad crossing, here's how you fix it.
Right.
And like 3 or 4 people said, oh, there's a bad crossing by me. And I said, there you go, and call. So for me, that's a ripple. Not only did I fix the crossing I was at, I taught other people how to fix a crossing near them.
Yeah, I love that. And Sue, I'm going to include any of the links that you recommended or mentioned. I'm going to include those in the show notes so that people have access to this wealth of information that you've shared today. Yeah, thank you for being here. And of course, for everything that you're doing for our community. I know that you've done even more than what you have shared today in the interview. And I hope that people listening feel inspired based on your example. So is there anything that you would like to share to close down our episode today?
Well, there is one other I say pet project. I started helping reunite lost and found dogs. And I realized that there were 25 things to do if you found a dog and 25 things to do if you lost a dog. But at the time, people were like, I don't know what I do with this dog.
Right.
So I created fab4dogs.com. It has a list of what you do if you found it or you lost it. And because it's my website, I know that I help over 7,000 people a year nationwide.
Wow, I love
So
that.
that's my pet project that I've been doing for over 10 years. The other thing I would say, I love this quote by Margaret Mead. I'm going to read to you.
Yeah.
Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
And thank you so much for having me today. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I love learning from you. Every time we chat, I learn something new. So thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Be the Change, a mini-series on Diary of a Dreamer. My hope is that these conversations leave you feeling more informed, more confident in your ability to think critically, and more empowered to contribute positively in your own community. Real change doesn't come from reacting quickly. It comes from thoughtful people who are willing to stay curious, ask good questions, and take meaningful action. If this episode encouraged you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with someone who values thoughtful conversations and positive change. You can learn more about my work and find additional resources at tashaeizinger.com. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep learning, and remember, each of us has the power to be the change.